Ohio University. He never believed in ghosts, not in demons, not in curses, not in rooms that whispered after midnight, but on a quiet campus in Ohio University, inside a brick dormitory known as Wilson Hall, there was a room, a single room, room 428. It was sealed and closed, locked, and no student has legally lived inside it for decades, because what happened there didn't end with death. It started with it. This story is told through records, student testimonies, campus legends, and chilling experiences whispered through generations. It's about a dorm room that forced a university to take an extraordinary step, permanently sealing it shut. And to this day, those who dare to sleep near room 428 say something still breathes behind the walls. This is the true horror of Ohio University's most infamous room. Nestled in the quiet hills of Athens, Ohio, Ohio University looks peaceful. Historic brick buildings, tree-lined walkways, students laughing between classes. But Athens County has long been associated with strange folklore. Local legends claim the region forms part of a pentagram of haunted locations, including cemeteries and abandoned mental institutions. And right at the center of that pentagram stands Wilson Hall. Built in the 1960s, Wilson Hall was like any other women's dormitory, at least at first, until room 428. In the early 1970s, a young female student moved into room 428. Her name is often left out of official retellings. Some say that's out of respect. Others say it's because speaking her name gives power to what followed. She was quiet, intelligent. But over time, her behavior began to change. Her roommates reported that she became isolated, withdrawn, obsessed with dark symbols and strange rituals. They claimed she rearranged furniture in unusual patterns. Candles burned at odd hours. Symbols were drawn on walls. And sometimes, she would speak to someone who wasn't there. At first, it was dismissed as stress. College can do that to people. But then came the night everything ended. One evening, residents noticed an unusual silence from 428. No movement, no sound. Until the smell. Authorities were called, and inside room 428, they found the student dead, officially ruled a suicide. But what disturbed officers wasn't just the act, it was the room. Strange symbols reportedly covered the walls. Furniture was arranged in ritualistic shapes. There were markings. Some claim inverted crosses. Others describe cryptic patterns, etched or drawn across surfaces. No confirmed photographs were ever publicly released, and that absence of proof only made the story darker. The university quietly cleaned the room, repainted it, reassigned it. But that's when the real horror began. The next students who moved into 428 lasted less than a week. They reported cold drafts even when windows were closed, objects moving slightly out of place, nightmares involving a girl standing in the corner. One roommate claimed she woke up unable to breathe, as if someone was sitting on her chest. Another said she heard scratching, slow, deliberate, coming from inside the walls. They requested a room change. Then the next group moved in, and they lasted 3 days. Over the years, reports grew darker. Students claimed doors slamming violently at night, violent shaking of beds, shadow figures near the ceiling, whispering voices speaking in an unknown language. One particularly chilling account described a student waking at 3 a.m. to see her roommate floating inches above her bed, eyes open, body rigid, before slamming back down. Whether sleep paralysis or something else, No one could say. But fear spread. Eventually, no one wanted 428. By the late 1970s, the university made a decision. Room 428 would be permanently sealed. The door was locked. Students were prohibited from entering. Furniture was removed, and the space was effectively erased from campus housing assignments. Officially, the university has never publicly confirmed paranormal reasons, but unofficially, everyone knew. Even today, if you walk through Wilson Hall, you'll find the hallway where 428 should be. The door exists, but it remains locked, and residents say that sometimes they hear something from inside. Decades later, Wilson Hall residents still share stories. Students sleeping in rooms adjacent to 428 report walls vibrating at night, cold spots localized near that section, sudden overwhelming feelings of dread. Some claim that if you stand near the door long enough, you'll hear a faint knocking. 3 knocks, pause, then 3 more. Others say electronics malfunction nearby. Phones glitch, recordings become distorted, almost as if something inside does not want to be documented. Skeptics argue it's mass hysteria, urban legend amplified through generations. College folklore passed down to frighten freshmen, but believers point out something unusual. Why permanently seal a dorm room? Why not renovate it? Why not reopen it decades later? Universities rarely surrender usable space without reason. And yet room 428 remains closed. Athens, Ohio has often been listed among America's most haunted small towns. Some paranormal investigators claim the geology of the area contains high quartz deposits, believed in paranormal theory to amplify spiritual energy. Others connect the region's history with native burial grounds and Civil War tragedy. Whether coincidence or convergence, Wilson Hall sits in a place long whispered about. And room 428 may simply be the focal point. Over the years, students have attempted unofficial investigations, holding recorders near the door, taking photos, trying spirit box sessions in adjacent rooms. Several recordings allegedly captured faint female sobbing. One clip reportedly contained a whisper, "Leave." But no official university-backed investigation has ever been made public. The silence from administration only deepens the mystery. Across decades, one detail remains consistent in testimonies: the apparition. A young woman, standing in the corner, facing the wall, long dark hair covering her face, sometimes crying, sometimes whispering, and sometimes slowly turning her head. Students claim that when she turns, her face is expressionless, eyes hollow, mouth slightly open, as if trying to speak. But no sound comes out. Every campus has ghost stories, but not every campus permanently seals a room. Room 428 isn't just a legend, it's a physical location, a locked door, a forbidden space. And sometimes, the fear isn't about what's inside, it's about what might get out. Imagine walking down the hallway of Wilson Hall at night. Fluorescent lights flicker. The building is silent. You stop in front of the door. Your hand hovers over the handle, and suddenly, from the other side, a soft knock, once, twice, 3 times. Then silence, no footsteps, no movement, just the feeling that something inside knows you're there, watching, waiting, and hoping. You open it. Room 428 remains sealed. Ohio University continues to operate as normal. Students continue to graduate. Life continues. But behind one locked dorm room door, the story never ended. University of Georgia. On a quiet southern campus, where magnolia trees sway gently in the humid night air, and red brick buildings glow beneath old lampposts. Two names still echo in whispers. One was a student who died too soon. The other, a teacher whose presence never faded. At the historic University of Georgia, students speak of a dorm room where lights flicker without warning. They speak of footsteps in empty hallways, and they speak of a woman in white who appears near a window long after midnight. This is the chilling legend of Susie Carruthers and Anna Hamilton, and the building where neither of them ever truly left. Founded in 1785, the University of Georgia is one of America's oldest public universities. Its campus in Athens is beautiful. Historic columns, sprawling lawns, and buildings that have witnessed generations of students. But one building stands apart. A women's residence hall built in the early 1900s, today known as Soul Hall. Students who live there quickly learn something unsettling. Room 204 has a reputation, and the fourth floor is never truly quiet. In 1905, a young student named Susie Carruthers moved into Soul Hall. She was described as kind, bright, soft-spoken, but deeply sensitive. Accounts say she struggled with homesickness, with loneliness, with expectations placed upon young women at the time. One evening, after weeks of emotional distress, Susie was found dead inside her dorm room. Official records describe it as suicide, a tragic end to a fragile life. But what followed made her story unforgettable. Soon after Susie's death, her former roommates reported strange occurrences in room 204. Candles that refused to stay lit, mirrors fogging without moisture, footsteps pacing at night. At first, administrators dismissed the claims as grief-induced imagination, but reports continued. Students sleeping in the room claimed they felt someone sitting at the edge of their bed. A weight, gentle, not aggressive, just present. One girl claimed she awoke to see a pale figure standing near the window, staring outside, long hair draped over her shoulders, wearing white. When she blinked, the figure vanished. Years before Susie's death, another woman had shaped life within Soul Hall. Anna Hamilton was a respected faculty member, strong-willed, disciplined, protective of her students. She lived inside Soul Hall while serving as a supervisor. When she died, students mourned her deeply. They believed she had dedicated her life to the young women under her care. But soon after Susie's passing, stories began to merge. Residents began reporting something unusual. Sometimes the spirit felt sad, lonely, quiet. Other times it felt watchful, authoritative, almost protective. One former resident described waking at 3 a.m. to a whispering in the hallway. Two female voices, one soft, one stern, arguing, but when she opened her door, the corridor was empty. Room 204 became the center of legend. Over the decades, multiple students requested room changes after experiencing similar events. Lights flickering repeatedly around midnight, sudden drops in temperature, the sound of weeping. Closet doors slowly opening on their own. One chilling account described a student studying late when her desk lamp went out. Not burned out, just switched off. She reached forward to turn it back on, before her hand touched it. The lamp clicked back on by itself, and in the reflection of her laptop screen, she saw someone standing behind her. A woman in white, eyes downcast. Gone when she turned. Interestingly, no student has ever reported physical harm. Fear, yes. Overwhelming sadness sometimes, but no violence. Some believe Anna Hamilton's spirit remains in Soul Hall, not to haunt, but to guard, to ensure no student ever feels as alone as Susie did. There is a tradition among residents. Before finals week, some students whisper, "Watch over me, Miss Hamilton," and many claim they sleep peacefully afterward. But if someone mocks Susie's story, things change. In the early 2000s, a group of residents decided to treat the legend as entertainment. They held a mock seance in room 204. They laughed, they filmed, they called Susie's name repeatedly. At first, nothing happened. Then the lights flickered violently. The room temperature dropped. One of the girls claimed she felt her hair pulled sharply from behind. The camera footage later showed a sudden distortion, static, at the exact moment she screamed. After that night, 2 of the girls moved out within a week. One refused to speak about what she felt in the room. Soul Hall's 4th floor has long been associated with Anna Hamilton. Residents describe hearing heels clicking against hardwood floors late at night. Measured, calm, as if conducting rounds. Doors gently rattling, not aggressively, but deliberately. Checking, ensuring they're locked. A former RA once reported that during a fire drill, she clearly saw a woman in early 1900s clothing standing near the stairwell. When approached, the figure faded. One October night, a freshman named Claire stayed behind in room 204 while her roommate visited family. Around 2:30 a.m., Claire awoke to the sound of quiet sobbing, not from the hallway, from inside the room. She sat upright. The air felt heavy. The window curtains moved slightly, though the window was closed, and near the window stood a pale figure, head lowered, shoulders shaking. Claire whispered, "It's okay." The sobbing stopped. The figure slowly lifted her head, eyes hollow, face expressionless. And then, another shape appeared behind her, taller, still, watching Claire, not menacing, but firm. And suddenly both figures dissolved into darkness. Claire transferred dorms the next semester. Skeptics argue these are classic campus legends. Old buildings settle, electrical wiring falters, imagination thrives in historic halls. But believers point out something unusual: the consistency. Across decades, across generations. 2 distinct energies, one sorrowful, one protective. It's 3:07 a.m. Rain taps softly against Soul Hall's windows. You walk down the quiet hallway toward room 204. The lights hum faintly overhead. As you pass, you feel it, a shift in the air. You pause. Behind you, a soft whisper. You turn. The hallway is empty, but near the end, you see her, a woman in white, standing beside a taller figure dressed in dark, old-fashioned clothing. The taller woman turns first, her expression stern, protective. The girl in white looks at you, not angry, not frightening, just sad. And then, the hallway lights flicker, and both figures vanish, leaving only silence and the faint scent of old perfume in the air. Soul Hall still stands. Room 204 is still assigned. Students still laugh in its corridors. But history leaves echoes, and sometimes those echoes take shape. Perhaps Susie Carruthers still walks near her window, and perhaps Anna Hamilton still keeps watch. Not every haunting is violent. Some are simply unfinished. East Tennessee State University. On a quiet Appalachian campus, where fog rolls down the hills before sunrise, and century-old buildings cast long shadows across brick walkways, there stands a child made of stone. Perfectly still, perfectly silent. But students at East Tennessee State University say that if you stare at him long enough, he moves. And inside a historic residence hall nearby, some believe the spirit of a former administrator still walks the corridors. Two separate legends, one campus, one question: what refuses to rest at East Tennessee State University? This is the chilling story of the Marble Boy and Sidney Gilbreth. Founded in 1911, East Tennessee State University, often called ETSU, sits in Johnson City, surrounded by the rolling Appalachian Mountains. Its campus is peaceful, beautiful, historic, but tucked between academic halls and shaded lawns are two legends passed quietly from class to class. One centers on a statue, the other on a man who dedicated his life to the university, and perhaps never left it. Near one of the older campus buildings stands a marble statue of a young boy, simple, innocent, carved with soft features and lifelike detail. No dramatic pose, no grand pedestal, just a child frozen in stone. Students call him the Marble Boy. There is no official plaque explaining his story in detail. Some say he represents youth and knowledge. Others say he was donated decades ago as a memorial. But over time, whispers began. It began with small details. Students walking past late at night would swear the statue's gaze had shifted. During the day, the boy's eyes appeared downward, almost thoughtful. But at night, some say he looks directly at you. One security officer reported something unsettling. While patrolling near midnight, he glanced at the statue under dim campus lighting. The boy's head appeared slightly tilted. He assumed it was shadow. But when he returned an hour later, the tilt seemed more pronounced, as if the statue had adjusted, watching the path, waiting. Every campus legend eventually attracts curiosity. One October evening, 3 students decided to test the Marble Boy story. They brought a camera, a flashlight, and plenty of confidence. At exactly midnight, they stood before the statue. They turned off their flashlights and let the moonlight illuminate the marble surface. They waited. Nothing happened. They laughed. But when one of them took a photo with flash, the image showed something strange. The statue's eyes appeared darker, hollow, almost shadowed. But in person, the marble eyes were pale and smooth. They dismissed it as camera glare, until the temperature dropped suddenly, and one of them whispered, "Did you hear that?" Soft, almost like a child's exhale. Behind them, they ran. To understand the second legend, we moved to another building, a residence hall tied to the name Sidney Gilbreth. Sidney Gilbreth was an influential figure at ETSU, dedicated, professional, deeply invested in the growth of the university. He served as a housing director and administrator for many years. Students respected him. He was known to conduct late-night rounds, ensuring students felt safe. When he passed away, the campus mourned. But some believe he never stopped making rounds. Residents of Gilbreth Hall have reported hearing footsteps late at night, measured, steady, like someone inspecting doors, sometimes accompanied by the faint sound of keys jingling. An RA once described checking the hallway after hearing footsteps at 2 a.m. She opened her door, expecting to see another staff member. Instead, the corridor was empty, but the footsteps continued, moving away, slowly, as if invisible boots were walking past her. She followed the sound. It stopped near the end of the hall, by a closed door. When she reached it, the doorknob turned slightly, then went still. Unlike many haunting legends, the spirit linked to Sidney Gilbreth is rarely described as malicious. Students report feeling watched, but not threatened. One freshman who experienced a panic attack alone in her dorm claimed she suddenly felt calm, as if someone stood beside her. A gentle pressure on her shoulder, no one visible, but the overwhelming sense that she was not alone. The panic faded. She later learned about Sidney Gilbreth's reputation for checking on students personally. The story gave her chills. Strangely, there have been nights when reports of activity near the Marble Boy and inside Gilbreth Hall occurred simultaneously. One winter evening, a campus-wide power flicker darkened several buildings for a brief moment. A student walking past the Marble Boy statue claimed the marble figure appeared to face the residence hall, directly toward it. Meanwhile, inside Gilbreth Hall, multiple residents heard doors rattle softly in unison, as if someone were testing each handle, ensuring they were secure. After the lights returned, everything was still. Some students report recurring dreams involving both legends. In these dreams, the Marble Boy stands in a dark field, alone, silent. Behind him, an older man walks slowly, watching over him, not speaking, not interacting, just guarding. Some interpret this as symbolic, the innocence of youth, protected by a guardian figure. But dreams on a shared campus often fuel shared fear. In 2017, a group of students attempted to film a documentary segment about campus legends. They set up a camera focused on the Marble Boy overnight. When they retrieved the footage, most of it was normal, except for a 2-minute segment at 3:12 a.m. static, distorted audio, and a faint shape appearing near the statue, small, pale, then gone. The audio reportedly captured a soft tapping sound. 3 taps, then silence. Skeptics argue marble reflects light differently at night. Old buildings produce unexplained sounds. College students are prone to suggestion. But believers ask, why are the experiences so consistent? Why footsteps? Why inspection-like behavior? Why the feeling of being watched but protected? It's late. The campus is nearly empty. A thin fog settles around the statue of the Marble Boy. You approach slowly. Street lights flicker. For a moment, everything is quiet. Too quiet. Then, from somewhere behind you, footsteps, steady, deliberate, you turn. No one. But when you face the statue again, the Marble Boy's head appears slightly raised, eyes angled toward you, and just beyond him, a shadow, tall, still, watching over the campus, guarding it, as if making one last round before dawn. The wind moves through the trees, the shadow fades, the marble returns to perfect stillness, and you're left alone, wondering if you were ever alone at all. East Tennessee State University continues to grow. Students attend classes, dorm lights flicker off at midnight. The Marble Boy stands unmoving in daylight. Gilbreth Hall sleeps quietly each evening, but history leaves impressions, and sometimes dedication is strong enough to linger. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of ETSU's most chilling campus legends, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications.